For your kind heart I give you this fish. It will always multiply for you.
Whoa, more fish! They're everywhere! So many!
Zukiru had
I'm
nothing,
so thirsty.
not even
Here
food
you
for
are.
tomorrow. But when she saw the old woman shaking with thirst on the roadside, she gave her the only water she had. The woman handed her one fish, just one. And when Zukiru dropped it into her clay pot that night,
Whoa,
it
more
became
fish.
100,
They're
shining,
everywhere! So
moving,
many.
multiplying before her eyes. This is the story of the miracle that changed an entire village. Stay with me, because what you are about to hear
Look at them all!
will restore your faith in
For your kind
kindness.
heart I give you this
Before
fish.
the
It will
miracle,
always
there
multiply
was
for
the
you.
girl. Her name was Zukiru. She was 22 years old, and she was the poorest person in the entire village of Okinwa. She lived alone in a small hut at the very edge of the village. The walls were cracked mud, the roof leaked when it rained. The floor was bare earth, swept clean every morning because cleanliness was the one thing poverty could not take from her. She had no mother, no father, no brother or sister. She had buried her mother 6 years ago, when she was just 16, and she had been alone ever since. The villagers of Okinwa knew Zukiru well. They knew her worn brown wrapper, faded from too many washes. They knew her torn slippers, the left one held together with a thin strip of rubber. They knew the sound of her soft voice in the early morning, greeting the older women as she passed their compounds on her way to the stream. That girl, Mama Ngozi always said, shaking her head slowly. She has nothing, but she gives like she has everything. It was true. Zukiru's food pot was usually empty by evening. She survived by fetching water for families who could not walk far. She pounded yam for older women in exchange for a small portion of soup. She carried market goods on her head for traders who paid her with leftover vegetables or a handful of grain. Whatever she earned, she ate just enough and saved the rest. Not for herself, but for moments when someone else needed it more. That very morning, she had split her last piece of boiled yam in two. She had given half to a hungry girl sitting outside Baba Olu's compound. A young girl of about 20 who had recently lost her job in the city and returned home with nothing, had looked up with hollow eyes. Zukiru had pressed the yam into her hands without a word and walked away before the young woman could refuse. Her own stomach was empty. It had been empty since the previous afternoon. But Zukiru did not complain. Complaining was a weight she could not afford to carry. Her most precious possession was not food or clothing. It was a clay water pot, round, smooth, and dark brown, with a small chip on the left side where it had knocked against a stone years ago. Her mother had made it with her own hands. It was the last thing her mother had ever given her. Zukiru carried it everywhere. She washed it gently every night. She spoke to it sometimes, late in the evening, the way another person might speak to a friend. "Mama made you," she would whisper, "so you carry her spirit." The old women of the village noticed this. They noticed everything about Zukiru, the way old women always notice the things that matter most. Her mother was just like her, they would say, sitting outside their huts in the evening, watching Zukiru pass. Same walk, same quiet kindness, same spirit that cannot keep a blessing to itself. Zukiru did not know they said this. She was too busy working to listen to conversations about herself. Every morning, she rose before sunrise. The village was still dark and cool. The palm trees stood like silent guards against the pale sky. She would tie her wrapper, lift her mother's clay pot onto her head, and walk the narrow bush path to the stream. The path smelled of wet earth and morning dew. Birds called to each other in the branches above. The world was quiet in a way that felt holy. She loved this walk. It was the one moment each day that belonged only to her. That morning, she walked the path as she always did. The stream was still misty, the water dark and cool. She filled her pot slowly, listening to the water speak against the clay. She was thinking about nothing in particular, only the sound of the stream and the soft ache of hunger in her stomach. She did not know, as she lifted her full pot and turned toward home, that today was different from every other day. She did not know that her life was about to change forever. That morning, as she walked to the stream with her clay pot, she had no idea that her life was about to change forever. That one act of kindness she was about to do would become the miracle everyone still talks about today. Zukiru returned home as the sun was climbing high. The village was waking up around her. Smoke rose from cooking fires. Children called to each other across compounds. The smell of palm oil soup drifted from somewhere nearby and made her empty stomach ache with longing. She swallowed and kept walking. Her hut was exactly as she had left it, small, quiet, the swept earth floor, the thin sleeping mat rolled in the corner, the blackened clay cooking pot sitting cold and empty on 3 stones. No firewood, no food, just walls and silence, and the single shaft of light that came through the small window each morning like a quiet gift. She set her mother's clay pot carefully in the corner and looked at the fish in her hands. It was still alive, still moving. This puzzled her. She had been carrying it without water for more than an hour. No fish survived that. But this one moved its silver tail gently against her palm, as calm as if it were resting in a river. She remembered Mama Susan's words. Drop it in your pot tonight and trust. She looked at the fish. She looked at the clay pot. She looked at the fish again. Tonight, she said to herself, she would wait until tonight. She spent the rest of the day working. She carried firewood for Mama Ngozi. She swept the front of Baba Olu's compound. In the afternoon, a trader at the market gave her half a cup of rice for helping load his cart. She cooked it plain, with no soup, no salt, and ate it slowly in the evening quiet. It was not enough, but it was something. When darkness came and the village fires burned low, Zukiru sat alone in her hut with her palm oil lamp throwing warm orange light across the walls. She picked up her mother's clay pot and carried it to the door. She poured in fresh water from the small reserve she had managed to collect during the day. The water settled, still and dark. She looked at the fish one more time. What if this is foolish? She thought. What if I drop it in and nothing happens? What if I have been foolish to believe an old woman I do not even know? Her hands trembled slightly. Then she remembered those eyes, deep and knowing. She remembered the words, "Your mother had the same spirit." She dropped the fish into the pot. It slipped below the surface and disappeared into the dark water. Zukiru waited. Nothing happened. She waited longer. The lamp flickered. The village outside was completely silent. She felt foolish. Of course nothing was happening. It was just a fish. She was a poor girl who had let loneliness and hunger make her believe in impossible things. She lay down on her sleeping mat. She closed her eyes. Her stomach growled once and then went quiet, the way a hungry stomach eventually surrenders to sleep. She slept. Then, deep in the middle of the night, she heard it. Splashing. Her eyes opened.
Hold on, the video's not over yet. Head to the comments for a link to the full video on YouTube. Click it and watch the rest. Thanks for watching Empire Stories. Mwah.